Oh, what a day. What a day this is. This is FaithWorks Live. My name is Rebekah Haynie. So glad that you're with us. And I am very excited to be joined by the one, the only, the Pastor Mike Demastus from Fort Des Moines Church of Christ. And Mike, it's always a good excuse to talk with you for any reason, but some pretty momentous stuff is happening in this time. And as of this recording, when we're talking together, this is breaking news. Just in the last 24 hours, we've discovered what might be a huge shift in the way our country has thought about life, about abortion, and maybe this is a preview of the day that many people have been praying for and working for longer than I've been alive, for 50 years now. So, Mike, welcome. What a day. Very excited to have you.
Yeah, thanks. And it is a big day. It's a pretty important day, and it's been kind of wild. I felt really weird all this morning because I'm here in the office. I apologize for sounding like a frog. I've got a little bit of allergy related cold. I'm in the office today because sermons don't write themselves, and but I can't stay focused. I have my mind isn't working. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like this giant atomic bomb went off, and people are out there, filling up their cars with gas. I'm like, don't you know what's going on? And I want to shake them. It's so big, but it's a pretty tremendous moment, I think, and pretty significant. And by the way, you say 50 years. Everybody keeps saying 50 years. It's 49. And 49 years and 5 months, technically, because I'm 51 and I'm counting every single moment now as dear and precious. So let's not add more than we need to.
Right, exactly. We shouldn't estimate to the detriment of your sensibility. So I appreciate that. And that specificity. Thank you, Mike. I can count on you for that. So just a quick rundown. I'm sure everybody who cares about this issue is probably aware by now. But what we are talking about is the SCOTUS ruling, the Supreme Court ruling in the Dobbs case, which is the Mississippi, a 15-week ban, as it's sometimes called. But it went to the Supreme Court. We followed that. We talked about it at the time, but we weren't expecting the ruling to come down until for another month at least. And which is basically what happens is the justices hear this case, and then they go through the process of deliberation. They make their opinions known at the time. They tally up the votes. So all the justices are aware of what went down in the courtroom and the decision they were intending to make and publicize. But it takes months after that to write their opinions and their justifications and make sure that all of that is done well and in order. In a perfect world, it will be, and it'll be constitutional. So what happened was, in an unprecedented move, as far as I know, this has never happened before with any other Supreme Court ruling. We got a surreptitious leak of this draft opinion written by Justice Samuel Alito that boldly overturns Roe v. Wade. Like the thing that we've been talking about, waiting for, praying for, as pro-lifers for, again, like you said, 49 days, 5 months, or 49 years, 5 months. Now, I don't know at this time who has done this, and I don't applaud any of their motives. This was not right to do. It seems as though it would be an insider, somebody with like an intern or clerk, something like that, perhaps from the office of maybe Justice Sonia Sotomayor or Elena Kagan, someone that is on the other side of this issue, the dissenting voices that are looking to uphold abortion. But at this point, we don't know. So when you first heard this news, Mike, what were your initial thoughts?
Well, I was perusing Twitter, as is my normal habit at night, and I was, and I saw it and immediately called someone that you and I both know in the media realm, and I just said, I just saw this. What's going on? And he offered his quick opinion, but hadn't seen it himself. And then of course he's since shared lots of opinions on it. But and folks so I got
media a quick, do that.
Yes, and I got a quick synopsis from him then, and then since have really kind of been following this every second. But it's this is ultimately utterly nefarious. And what you've seen with the leak of this document, and I think that you're dead on right. Most are leaning towards the office of Sotomayor. Sotomayor was the one that quote tattled on the justices for not wearing masks, and so leaked that info. So she's known for doing that. Now, whether or not she was behind this or not, that's who knows if we'll ever even find that part out. But there was definitely, I'm assuming, a clerk or an aide in her office that was the one behind ultimately leaking this to Politico of all sources, to get this information out there. It's really big. Now, this is not a final draft. It was dated February 10th, I believe. And this is not an extent. I mean, this is not like a quick little summary judgment kind of thing. This thing is 98 pages long. I read through it.
Wow.
It effectively, completely demolishes every argument that there is for Roe v. Wade. It takes away all of the legal reasoning that could be potentially behind it, and replaces back the constitutional authority that has been missing for so long, and that that somehow right to privacy under due process, that they found this law that never ever actually existed, has been taken away. Now, what's really interesting, by the way, is this isn't just Roe v. Wade that's taken away. He also is overturning Casey versus Planned Parenthood as well. So both of those rulings are effectively null and void if this goes into effect. There is still the potentiality that exists, just so that it could be out there, that this might not be the case. I mean, it's a 5-4 decision. But since then, we have learned, and I don't know how CNN got this scoop, but that Chief Justice Roberts actually was not with full dissent. So there would be 3 dissenting. Chief Justice Roberts was in support of upholding what they were trying to say in Mississippi. And so allowing Mississippi to stand on its own merit, but not overturn Roe v. Wade, not go that far. That's like a bridge too far for him. But the other 5 justices, which would be Alito, Thomas, Barrett, and the other 2. But
Gorsuch and Kavanaugh. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
All of those justices are with Alito in this, and so it's pretty powerful. Now, the leaking of this, the nefarious intent behind this is obviously to maybe sway what many people believe would be Gorsuch or Kavanaugh. Kavanaugh is now with the terrible hearing that he went through to be approved, is now getting to spend some of his up yours money and at the liberals. So that's an interesting dynamic. But it's a lot of political capital being spent on this decision. But I'm frankly surprised. I did not think this would happen. I'm just being completely honest. I didn't think it would. But I think it doesn't. The things to note: this ruling, if it goes down this way, does not eliminate abortion. Doesn't. Abortion is just punted back to the states. And so what we will have is what happened before Roe v. Wade, is there'll be a number of states that allow abortion and a number of states that outlaw abortion. And people can still have access to abortion. They'll just be able, to sacrifice their children to Molech. They'll have to drive farther. That's all.
Yeah. And that's really important to point out. I think as we are hopefully led by truth, and we can hope that this is finally something that will be a first step to justice in our and to righteousness in our land. But as you point out, what this would do if this, what we know now, the draft goes into effect as an actual decision, would do is effectively turn things back over to the states, like you said. And in states like Iowa, we're not doing nearly enough to protect our preborn children.
No, we've got a ways to go, actually. And, because of the case in 2018 that went before our Iowa Supreme Court, that was a 72-hour waiting period that was signed into law by our governor, passed through both houses. of the legislature, it was taken to court immediately and then struck down. And what our Iowa State Supreme Court found in that was basically using the same premise of that due process right to privacy. There's nothing in our Iowa Constitution that says this, but they said there's a fundamental right to abortion. And so that's now back before the Supreme Court, which is really interesting, because the Supreme Court that ruled on this in 2018 is not the same Supreme Court that made that now. And so this Supreme Court actually has several justices, jurists that were appointed by our very conservative governor, Kim Reynolds, to the bench. And so that's not always a guarantee either. You know what I mean? So it's we'll see, I guess. But if they are able to overturn that law, the great thing about that is that it's not necessarily a statement that Iowa is going to ban abortion, which we could maybe potentially do that in the future, but it means that we will have the ability to limit or restrict it, or at least put some regulations upon it in the future.
Mm-hmm. It means that people could no longer look to Roe v. Wade and say, well, this is the settled law of the land. It finally starts opening things up I'm not sure that this decision would go far enough for someone like me, because, I'm a radical like that. I think we could have said just a few more things about the right to life. But what this decision does, at least in its drafted form, what we currently know, is it does repudiate Roe v. Wade and Planned Parenthood v. Casey, which are egregiously bad. What is it that Alito says in his decision? He says, quote, Roe was egregiously wrong from the start. We hold that Roe and Casey must be overruled, and it's time to heed the Constitution and return the issue of abortion to the people's elected representatives. That might be one of the strongest decisions, if in fact it ends up being codified, that I have ever seen. It is completely, I hate the phrase overturning because it's overused, but it is repudiating Roe v. Wade. And honestly, that was the only decision that the court had before them. The White House, arguing in favor of abortion, so they were on the defense in the Dobbs case, said that Roe did not allow for carve-outs or modifications. So they upped the ante on this. If you remember back in their arguments, they said, because some conservatives were saying, well, maybe they'll just chip away at Roe, maybe they'll just make some modifications, but still leave it in place. And the pro-abortion side actually argued that you couldn't do that. That what the issue that was before the court was nothing less than a complete upholding or reversal of Roe v. Wade, basically.
They made it an all or nothing bid.
Exactly. And it sounds like Justice Alito agreed from what we are seeing here. Now, again, this was leaked, and I wanted to talk about that because I'm not sure exactly how this will all go down. And I know that I surmise, I should say, the intention of the person who leaked this was to cause harm, to wreak havoc, to create problems, to create pushback such that maybe the justices would change their minds, or that it would actually endanger. It has the effect, and whether or not it was intended, it has the effect of definitely physically endangering these justices. There's security up around the Supreme Court, as there should be, and this should be a subject of our prayer.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I actually sent out a message to our church about things to be praying about with this. And, I'll share that in a little bit. But, one of the things quickly on this too, is that what you saw, especially on social media last night, social media is okay. It's not always a marker. It's really important to always remind yourself, this isn't real life. This isn't a representation of the whole. It's not. Mm-hmm. But last night, the leaker, whoever he or she may be, was being hailed as a hero by different media on the left last night, that this was, hey, they're willing to take one for the team, and we're very proud of this person. This was a big, courageous act to do this, because it's important that we are ready for this battle. And so there are many on the left that think that this was, almost like a Jesus Christ crucifixion effort on this person's part, literally sacrificing him or herself so that, the importance of murdering babies can continue. And that's something to say, if you think about that, what they're willing to do. Yeah. As I said, this individual was willing to corrupt the integrity of our nation's highest court in order to protect a woman's right to murder her child, which says a lot about the sacrament of this issue in the eyes of those on the left. Right. And I think that's, that's worth noting.
Who are normally all about preserving the integrity of the court, and we have to be sure that we're not, that democracy is threatened when you decide something that I don't like, which is another possible motivation for a bad political actor to leak something like this that I've been thinking about since we are coming up on election season. And what we're talking about here is nothing less than life and death. So it's much bigger than politics, but it is expressed in the political realm. And so I think the political possibilities of what motivated this leak at this time is that they're expecting a very difficult election for the party that is blatantly pro-abortion.
Absolutely. I think that that's true. And I think that this is what I think it's an incredibly big miscalculation on their part. Although this issue is so very important to me, and I know it is to you as well. I think it's priority number one. Mm-hmm. Come November, when we are in the height of a recession and gas is higher than normal, and you're paying as much for a gallon of milk as you are for a gallon of gas. I mean, it's going to be the people at the polls aren't going to remember this Dobbs case anymore. They're going to remember how they're being impacted financially. And so that's just a reality. I don't think banking on this issue with, it might drum up some people for the left that we're going to go anyways, but I don't know that it's going to do that much to sway the election. I think that the Democrats are in for a comeuppance this November.
Well, and nobody deserves it more, I dare say. Anyone that's willing to, go all out for the killing of children and the manipulating of men and women, and really just giving full-throated voice and support to sin and to destruction of life, they deserve to lose. That's not a controversial statement. It shouldn't be a controversial statement.
Absolutely.
But I'm not sure what's going to happen in the political realm. I wonder if we'll see some sort of congressional move, since the Democrats right now control all three of the federal branches in majority, although a slim majority in the Senate. And I wondered if—
Are you talking about like ending the filibuster? Is that what you're thinking?
I wonder if these are my Bernie 3 a.m. musings, so I don't have any special insight on this, but I thought, what about the timing of this seems strange. And then I thought, well, maybe they're attempting to pressure Congress, the Democrats in Congress, into acting and trying to force legislation on to quote unquote legalize abortion.
They've got
through
two
Congress.
Problems, and the names of those two problems are Manchin and Sinema. And I think that's the issue. Well, who would have ever thought? And what's the other really weird thing that somebody pointed out? The greatest pro-life warrior that we could maybe ever thank now is the late Harry Reid, who actually, fought to get us in the position that we are in right now. Mm-hmm. And so, when they kind of broke the rules, I mean, all along the way, breaking the rules to get to a position where they wanted to be at has led the Democrats to this spot where we have literally abided by the rules all along this way. Even when the rules got changed, we continue to abide by the new changed rules. And so now the Democrats are in a spot. It's really funny, by the way. I mean, social media is just littered. When you just look at the hashtag on Twitter of Roe v. Wade and just start scrolling, and you'll see people saying things like, this radicalized court is legislating from the bench, and these unelected justices are making laws, and that's not their parameters. And I'm like, man, that sounds familiar.
It does. Wow. You say that like it's a bad thing all of a sudden.
Right? I know, right? I'm like, wow, where'd you get these lines from? They're great. I need to write them down.
I mean, it's nice that you woke up and all, but it's been a little late.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Welcome to the party.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. Well, it's funny when you get bit by the snake you've been handling this whole time. It's not fun anymore.
Exactly.
And that's the problem. But one of the things about this, and I want to get back to the nefarious nature of the leak, but one of the things about this is that I think is a good silver lining, just politically, is for the states. How many times, and I know you've been there, I've been there countless times up there, where you have had legislators tell you Well, the reason that I don't want to vote for this is because it'll get knocked down in the federal courts anyway.
Over and over again, ad nauseum.
I've heard that so many times from so many different legislators, and now that's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Nope, that's not true anymore. So now we get to see from our state legislators who's been hiding behind those stupid lines for so long, how they're not going to be able to have that as cover anymore. Mm-hmm. So when it comes down to really passing laws statewide that are going to affect lives, they don't have that cover. And so we'll see what happens.
Well, and I have to confess, along those similar lines, I had a thought, and I hope it's not unduly cynical to express it, but I suppose I've been called worse. So I guess I need to confess to you, Pastor Mike, that this is a thought of mine, that we're going to see who is truly pro-life all along, and we're going to see the people who are using those excuses, using Roe v. Wade as basically an excuse for the last 50 years to say, well, we can only go this far and no farther. And whether that's legislators or people who have powerful microphones and platforms that would say all the right things, but then when push came to shove, do we have much action to back it up? They weren't willing to go all the way or all in to protect life. And we, started getting mystified and asking why are these people that we're electing or we're, nominating to speak for us as pro-life, why aren't they taking more action? Why aren't they doing all that they can to save lives, to stop abortion in this country? And I think a lot of things are about to be revealed. Is that too cynical?
No, it's not, because my mind went there too. So maybe we're cynical kindred spirits, but I thought about organizations that, we probably shouldn't name. So I won't name National Right to Life or any other organization like that. But
that's for the best.
Organizations that have existed, literally making multiple millions of dollars off of this issue. What are they going to celebrate this? Are they going to change their focus? And what are we going to do? Now with organizations like that, and because it's not all about the big fancy gala dinners that they get to throw in DC and the black tie affairs that they get to have and all of that. So I just wonder what the future holds ultimately for some of those organizations that exist, just in my mind, a lot of times just to make money off of this issue.
Well, and let's talk a little bit about the future and what we could see. Now, neither of us is particularly prophetic, but we can guess with the best of them. So
hey, I'll tell you what, on the Monday after Easter, I changed our church sign to say, pray that America becomes a post-Roe nation. And I kind of credit, I'm the one that did this.
You did it.
So it's pretty much me.
Thank you, Mike Demastus.
Yes,
thank you for doing this. Now, to be clear, you didn't leak secret documents or anything from the Supreme Court. That was not you.
No, I did not do that. No, did not. So, but
oh man, Mike Demastus from Fort Des Moines Church of Christ, who has untold power when it comes to the Supreme Court, as I've just now discovered. I can't believe I've known you all these years and I didn't know this about you. But we're going to talk about the future of which is, God willing, a post-Roe nation, what that looks like in our state. We can talk specifically, but also across the country, and what this might mean for people who are dedicated to pro-life, because this is not the end of any. If it's the end of Roe, then it's a whole new beginning. It's a whole new chapter of defending life and what some of that might look like. Lots of, I think, encouragement and hope to be had today, but also the work is ahead. And I would say the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few in this. So we will talk about a little bit about what the future is going to look like when we return. You're listening to FaithWorks Live. Now is the time to stand for life. For 50 years, Iowans for Life has been the longest standing nonprofit pro-life organization in Iowa, and they stand strong today as Pulse Life advocates. They believe in defending the defenseless. And that's what we need now, a new generation to value the sanctity of all human life from fertilization till natural death. They advocate at the Capitol, in classrooms, at events across the state of Iowa on abortion, on family planning, on physician-assisted suicide, euthanasia, basically every issue where the culture is so contrary to what God calls us to. They're standing in the gap as defenders defenders of the defenseless, and they're a voice for the voiceless because they believe in the value of life. And if you do too, sign up for their newsletter and get involved today at pulseforlife.org. That's pulseforlife.org. At FaithWorks Live, we're proud to partner with InnerVisions Healthcare. In unplanned pregnancy and STD situations, they offer help and hope. It's all confidential and it's all free. If women are in a crisis pregnancy situation, they know that they can get real help at InnerVisions. Free pregnancy testing, free STD testing, free ultrasounds as well to see that inner vision. Because women deserve the truth about their bodies, about their baby, about all of their options. And if a woman has gone down the road of seeking abortion through medication and she regrets that decision, InnerVisions also offers abortion pill reversal procedure, which is a life-saving, miraculous option to have right here in our own community. InnerVisions Healthcare, well worth supporting, providing those free services to women in crisis pregnancy. You can call them 24 hours a day at 515-440-2273. That's 515-440-2273. Welcome back to Faith Works Live. Rebekah Haynie's my name, but you know that because we're old friends. And speaking of old friends, none other than Pastor Mike Demastus in the house, well, virtually in the house, because he's, not feeling super well, but has to speak on this momentous day. There's no one else I'd rather talk to, Mike, because I know how passionate you are and how fervently you have been praying, as have so many, for the end of quote unquote legal abortion in this country through Roe v. Wade, Planned Parenthood v. Casey, which we now understand that the justices understand how egregiously wrong this has been. That's the quote from the expose in Politico on Justice Alito's draft decision to repudiate and to end Roe v. Wade. He says, quote, again, draft decision, but hopefully very close to what will be actual decision very soon. Roe was egregiously wrong from the start. Its reasoning was exceptionally weak. The decision has had damaging consequences. Yeah, understatement. And as far as bringing about a national settlement on the abortion issue, Roe and Casey have inflamed debate and deepened division. Absolutely it has. And so he says it's the time to overrule Roe and Casey and to heed the Constitution, to return the issue of abortion to the people's elected representatives. So landmark, if true, if this is what's eventually decided, then it's hugely, it changes everything with regard to the abortion conversation. Now, we've talked so much about, Roe and that being the goal and what happens in a post-Roe world. If this is reality, I hope everybody's ready for it, Mike, because this is going to change a lot of things, but it still means there's much work to be done.
I agree with you. I want to read one section, just two paragraphs here from the ruling that Justice Alito said, because he kind of looks to the future a little bit in his ruling. Again, that ruling, if you read his ruling, it's 98 pages long, so it's extensive. And I read it all last night, blurry-eyed and all. But anyways, this is one of a couple paragraphs that are really important. He said, "We do not pretend to know how our political system or society will respond to today's decision overruling Roe and Casey. And even if we could foresee what will happen, we would have no authority to let that knowledge influence our decision," which is powerful. Mm-hmm. We can only do our job, which is to interpret the law, apply long-standing principles of stare decisis, and decide this case accordingly. We therefore hold that the Constitution does not confer a right to abortion. Roe and Casey must be overruled, and the authority to regulate abortion must be returned to the people and their elected representatives. That is, wow. I mean, that's such a powerful statement. And so what does that mean? I mean, like you said, we've been praying for this for years and years and years. And what do? I've been in the pro-life cause for a long time. I mean, more than just a pastor preaching about it, which sadly is a rare thing. I've been active in the pro-life movement in our state for a long time. And I'm just so thankful for this moment. But I believe what it means for us is nothing. I mean, we just keep doing what we've been doing, and that is, like, we love on women who find themselves in difficult circumstances. We come beside them and we let them know you're not alone. And in a compassionate way, we tell them the worst possible thing you could do right now is to kill your child. We want to help you walk through this, and killing the baby is not going to help you. that's only going to bring so much more hurt and pain. And so that's what we do. And we give tangible support and help in their life, financially, time-wise, just all of those things. And it's grueling and it's tiring and it's hard work, but it's the work of what it means to be a pro-life individual. Mm-hmm. There are no pro-choice compassionate care clinics out there. There aren't. There are pro-choice clinics out there that will help you murder. That's it. But there are no compassionate pro-choice clinics out there that walk alongside a woman to give them financial support, to give them, tangible support to learn how to parent and be a mom and all those. No, nothing like that. And so, but the only people that do that are the pro-life movement. And so I've seen a few pastors online saying things, well, now we got to start thinking, we got to start loving these women and we got to start, being there. And I'm like, we got to start.
What were we doing before this?
Where you been at, man? What
Welcome to the party,
doing, brother.
Yeah.
Because, I honestly, that's what I think. I think that's a little sad because that's what I've been doing for a long time. And I'm not saying that to toot my horn, don't hear that way, but honestly, the decision, I'm so thankful for it because it's going to have an effect, a real world effect on the number of babies being slaughtered. It's going to stop that. It's going to slow it down, but it doesn't mean the work is over. The work just gets going harder, and now, like you had so eloquently said, we get to see who's really pro-life or not.
Yeah. Well, and I don't want to be the one that just for today, I don't want to be the cynic in the room that throws cold water on everybody's pending party. But sometimes that's how I roll. And I've thought about this for so long that we've used Roe as it's been the big monster that people have been afraid to confront, and we've allowed that legislators and leaders and even people who know better, right? People who care, but who have maybe lacked courage to stand up and say, well, we can't because of Roe. And, if only that could be overturned, then we could actually do something. And well, if we're confessing and admitting now, and the court is admitting now, God willing, that this was always wrong. If it is wrong now, if this decision was unconstitutional and wrong 50 years ago, give or take, then it was always wrong. And that means for almost the last 50 years, we have been telling people that this opinion matters more than what we know the truth of God himself, God Almighty, to be. And we've been allowing this to be an excuse and to be an obstacle and to stand in our way for the last 5 decades. We've been allowing the killing of millions and millions of children and the destruction of families and women's lives. We've been lying to ourselves. We've been basically blaspheming and destroying the very image of God. These gifts that he has given us so abundantly. We've been sacrificing our own children for 50 years. And now maybe we'll realize that we were wrong. But if that's the case, then it was always wrong. And we should have known that. And if we did know it and we allowed that to be enough to stand in our way, to stand impotently by and not do anything about this, as children were being led away to slaughter and men and women's lives were being destroyed over and over again, the very future of who we are, the very legacy that God was so gracious as to give us, the unknown potential that we threw away on the altar of convenience, this modern day Molech that we have vaunted. That's what on earth can we say? What on earth can we say? We should have our faces in the dust, in sackcloth and ashes at this point. So yeah, that's the soapbox. I found it and I stepped up on it, Mike.
That's quite all right. I think that, for many in the church, it's like the little communities that lived near the rail lines in Germany and Eastern Europe, where Jews were loaded into boxcars and carted off to Auschwitz and Birkenau and in Dachau and other places. And as those rail cars would go by in those homes, I remember reading a poem long ago that told, and I'm not going to tell it as eloquently as the poem did, but basically it was about this sweet little German lady who loved baking and loved her neighbors. And she would always have to hold the glass on her shelves as the cars would go by because they were shaking. And she just lived her life, not even thinking about what was happening. And I think that that's what many of us have been doing. As Francis Schaeffer says, as he did in the 80s, that all of these abortion clinics in our neighborhoods do so at the permission of the local church. And we've forgotten to be outraged at this bloodshed. And so it is the preeminent issue of our day. And sadly, it took us 49 years and 5 months in the wilderness. And I think that now we are ready to cross the Jordan. And I think that that's a good thing. But I think that for many of us, that means that, we just don't change what we're doing. We're continue on the same work that we've been doing. Mm-hmm. For some, it means they finally are awake now. And, I've got to do something. That's good. Okay, then join in. We'll make room for you. And that's a good thing.
I suppose that's the positive interpretation of what I just said, which is essentially, hey, if now is what it took to get you to this point and you want to come and join in, please do. There's plenty of room for you.
Yes.
I will keep my other opinions to myself. And
no bones about it, though.
Right.
There are people who desperately want the ability to murder their children. This is their holy grail. This is their prime issue. And this sacrament they will hold on to fiercely. And the hounds of hell have been unleashed. And that's why I'm scared for these justices and their lives and their families. Think about doxing. You think about somebody like Amy Coney Barrett, who has 12 kids. And I mean, she's, just their lives. I mean, it's dangerous enough to be a political figure like that, but this is a for real thing, and now the ante is up quite a bit. And there are potentially going to be some people who will want to do them great harm. Mm-hmm. And so I, like what we said earlier, praying for them is a big deal. We need to be doing that.
It is. And I think maybe we're not, meaning the body of Christ that likes to speak out, likes to see things get done, likes to shake those gates of hell. We need to be supportive and encouraging when people do the right thing, when people take stands and are courageous. And this is a request. I couldn't sleep last night when I was thinking about all this. Also, I have a 1-month-old now, so she doesn't let me sleep either, but it's a lot of good extra prayer time, I will say. And so I was spending a lot of it. I was praying for the justices by name. And I think this isn't finalized. And as much as maybe we don't expect this outcome, we should be praying for everyone, even those in the dissent that still believe so strongly in protecting abortion as though it's this wonderful benefit. God can transform hearts that we thought were beyond redemption and beyond repair. So we should also be praying for those, the three for sure in the dissent, as well as Justice Roberts, that maybe their hearts of stone will be transformed as well on this issue. But definitely praying for Alito, Thomas, Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, and Barrett, who are taking this stand for life. And this is monumental. It has not escaped my notice that 3 of those justices were just recently confirmed just in the last, 3 years? Yes. And so that has made a huge difference. That's a huge legacy that some of us were concerned that it wouldn't have the impact during that, because that was huge during President Trump's administration. And I feel like I need to put that out there, that this
Who
was
knew
exactly
that he would become one of the most important presidents in all of history.
This is crazy.
Reverse this terrible, awful, wicked decision of Roe v. Wade. And so, kudos on that. And I think that anybody, even the never Trumpers, should be able to say, yep, at least he got that done. And I think that's a wonderful thing.
Let's talk a little bit more on the other side about the future of a post-Roe America. We've been praying for it. Are we prepared for it? I would say in the state of Iowa, we could do better. We can do better at protecting babies. We must, in fact, do better. I will just candidly say that being a fan of the personhood strategy, for example, I think Justice Alito was just this close because he talks about the 5th and 14th Amendments. And if only he had said, for my happy heart, if only he had said, we recognize the preborn children as persons under the Constitution and extend them the full legal rights thereof, that they deserve life, liberty, and should not be deprived of them without due process of law. That would have been, if I had written the opinion, that's where it would have gone in that last sentence. I liked everything else. But right now, this is going to turn, as it stands, it will return things back over to the states as a more federalist approach, which means it is like what we had pre-Roe v. Wade. And that will mean different things in different states. There's some egregiously pro-abortion moves. And like you said, basically the shrieks from the fiery furnace are being heard right now. And so let's talk about what that could look like, both the good, the bad, and the ugly in America in a post-Roe world when we return. You're listening to FaithWorks Live.
What does love look like? Love means serving those who are truly in need, and that is what they do at Agape Pregnancy Resource Center. That's really what they're all about: helping, loving, serving women in crisis pregnancy situations with free pregnancy testing, STD testing, ultrasounds, and so much more. For practical needs, they have turned whole lives and whole family trees. It's amazing to see what they're doing right here in our very own community for women in need. They provide free services because they believe that women deserve the truth about their bodies and about their babies. And when women know they're not alone, they can fix the crisis and carry them through the pregnancy. They empower women to choose life. And like I said, whole families are here because of the work that they do at Agape. There are many ways to get involved, practical ways for you to live out your pro-life through Agape. Get involved with their important ministry at agapedsm.com. Click the tab that says Get Involved and find out their current needs and ways that you can help meet those needs and care for women in crisis and save babies at the same time. It's agapedsm.com. When you love people, you cook them tasty food. And there is no tastier food for my money and for my family than Anonymous beef. And they are so good at what they do. It's naturally raised beef. And in fact, there's several opportunities. You've had to be on a wait list because of how good and how popular their products are. Well, now there's new opportunity right now. Act now to get your Anonymous beef. There's no steroids or antibiotics. It is all natural, farm-raised butcher beef. And you can pay processing at the locker fees. They help walk you through all of the process. It's a little bit different than going to the grocery store, but it is well worth it. You get great value for your money, and they help walk first-time customers through the whole process. Now is the perfect time to provide great quality food for your family, and it just doesn't get better than Anonymous beef. So go to their website and start looking at your order today, whether it's half a cow or freezer full, whatever you need to fit your family, they'll help you out. It's anonymousbeef.com. That's OHNEMUS beef.com.
FaithWorks Live is the name of the show. It is a true blessing to have the perspective of Pastor Mike Demastus, and who better to talk about this momentous day than someone I know has been, maybe like you have, been praying for years that we would see the end of abortion in our nation, a post-Roe country, a post-Roe nation, as it's sometimes been called. Roe v. Wade we might be right at the precipice of a momentous time in history where we no longer have to talk about Roe v. Wade and wring our hands over quote unquote legal abortion in America. We are seeing through this door, and we're just about able to walk through, and God willing, we will. But what does that look like on the other side? These are conversations that, hopefully we've been having for the last several years and decades at this point, but no second better time to have it than now. And Mike, I know that you are very aware, keenly aware of how different states have approached this. And
right.
And that's relevant because if this decision holds, then it does not outlaw abortion, but what it does is reverse Roe v. Wade and Planned Parenthood v. Casey. So this brings us back to where we were in a pre-1973 world where each state had different approaches. Now, one cool thing I will say, because I'm kind of a history buff about these types of things, a cool thing that Justice Alito does is he says Roe v. Wade never gave any justification for the legality of abortion in the first place. It just invented things out of whole cloth. So let me give you a history lesson on abortion law in America. And he spends many pages doing that. And the long and short of it is that abortion in every single state at the time of the 14th Amendment's writing, abortion had criminal consequences in every single state. So there's absolutely no way that the authors of the Constitution, or let alone the 14th Amendment, would have envisioned that it would be used to defend abortion, because that was a crime. at that time. And it basically kind of became this push to legalize things in the later part of the 20th century. So that, with that as a backdrop, we've had many years of legislation since then, assuming that abortion was legal in various states, and it was up to the states to regulate it. Different states have taken different approaches, and some of them have been a lot more bloodthirsty than others. And you posted one egregious example of this is from the state of Virginia. Right. Do you want to say anything before we start to hear it, or is it self-explanatory?
You're going to see, or you're going to hear a legislator from a representative, Democratic representative from Virginia. Her name is Kathy Tran. This is from 2019. So it's a few years back. And this actually, all of this video that you're going to hear the audio from, this led to the famous interview by Ralph Northam, and leaving the babies lying dead on, or to die on a table there. That's all of that stuff that came out of that was what the impetus was of that. And so it's pretty potent stuff.
So when we say killing babies, that's exactly what she's talking about. This is a lawmaker that is advocating for the killing of children as they are being delivered into this world. I don't know that I'm almost speechless at the raw audacity of that. And she seemed a little bit sheepish about admitting that, Mike, but this is the law in some states.
Well,
this is the attempt.
Yep, that's Virginia 2019. And that, by the way, was passed. And so they became, honestly, one of the most openly vile states in terms of abortion laws in the nation at that time. And then Illinois passed similar legislation since then. And just recently, Colorado has become a nation or a state just like that. But even allowing for that baby to, if it's born from a botched abortion, to be cared for, just like Virginia. But openly writing that into the law. And then California, probably the most pernicious of all of these laws that have been passed most recently, just passed a law through their state house legislature that allows a child to be murdered up to 10 days. And in fact, it gets so disgusting. And they tried to say that Republicans were grandstanding and saying, more about this, that this isn't true. They're using hyperbole. But written into the code, if, like, say they found a baby in a trash can or in a dumpster, that the medical officer, I can't think of the name, but one of those, the coroner, medical coroner, yeah, they cannot investigate the death of an infant found like in a trash can or in a dumpster. That's written into the law because that mother may have decided she didn't want that child after the child was born, and so that they're just not going to investigate that, and that would be put in the protections of a mother with abortion, and so they're not going to prosecute those criminally. And so those are that now California gets most evil, most wicked state in our nation. And those are current laws that exist. And Roe v. Wade being overturned actually won't overturn those state laws. Those state laws will still be in effect until somebody in those states comes to their senses and takes on leadership and reverses the just dreadful damage they're doing. But that's the reality. And I think what we'll see after this judgment comes down, if it comes down as it is, that we'll probably have around 13 states or so. Probably, I'm assuming right around 13 states, kind of almost on opposite coasts, except for Illinois, that will allow abortion. Sorry, that was my Apple Watch trying to find stuff for me. But so abortion will be legal in about 13 states, and people will still be able to go to those states. But I think the majority of states will either have limits placed on abortion or even outright bans placed on abortion. in the other remaining states across our country.
Yeah, and I pray that Iowa is one of them.
Yes.
We have certain regulations in place, but even those were subject to the capricious whim of our own Supreme Court. Now we are expecting a pretty important and significant ruling there coming down as well. But ultimately, like you said, this has been in American law always the domain of the lawmakers in each individual state.
Right.
And while I do believe that there is constitutional protection for each and every person under current American law, the way that this is going to go is state by state. So this is an area where, like you referenced earlier, Mike, there is no reason anymore for pro-life lawmakers in our state here in Iowa to be bashful or to be anything less than courageous, forthcoming, to fulfill all of those campaign promises about how we're going to protect life. And there should be nothing standing in our way any longer, right?
I think so. I think it might, for conservatives at least, overturning Roe can be a little bit difficult, because all a lawmaker will have to do to get elected is say the right things, which happens right now anyways. But I mean, if I'm going to work to get abortion outlawed in our state, they can say that on the campaign trail. And then they can get in there and just do what they're going to do and not worry about outlawing abortion when it comes down to it. And that, even though that's what's happening right now, I think it'll actually become kind of easy, because that's what we're going to be listening for. That's what we're going to be wanting, at least most conservative voters. And so that's just the way they're going to have to talk, I guess, and I guess, we're going to have to be good at vetting, but that's the reality. I think, there's another sideline to this for me outside of the political sphere that is important. And I think that's, with the church's response in this right now.
Absolutely. Let's go there.
Is that okay?
Yes, please.
I'd like to, and I want to share with you what I shared with my church today via email, and I'll just read it to you, what I sent out this morning or early after staying up all night on a medicated, hypnosis.
You were at your best.
Yes, but I just said, church family, you most likely have heard about the seditious act of leaking the draft of the upcoming ruling of the Supreme Court of the United States regarding the Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Clinic in Mississippi. The draft outlines from Justice Alito a 5-4 decision of the court to overturn Roe v. Wade and Casey v. Planned Parenthood. And those decisions are on par with some of the most wicked and pernicious decisions ever made by our nation's highest court. And now it seems that's about to change. So I'm asking you to pray. I couldn't sleep most of the night. I spent a good deal of the time talking to the Lord about this, just like you, Rebekah. And here's what I want you to be praying about. I want you to pray for our nation, because we are already a staunchly divided nation, and that division is due to a clash of worldviews. So we need to pray for peace to reign, pray for hearts to be softened. I want us to pray for the 5 justices, as we have already enumerated, because the treasonous act of leaking this draft, they're going to be facing an onslaught of threats of persecution. Their lives, the lives of their families will be genuinely in danger. And we need to pray for their safety and for their tenacity to not change the opinion that they have already expressed in this ruling. Justice cannot be swayed because of public outcry. Otherwise, it's just mob rule. We need to pray for our own state here in Iowa. We have a very important case, as we have already stated, before the Iowa Supreme Court. Has the potential to turn over the wicked decision by our state's highest court that said that there is a fundamental right guaranteed by our Iowa Constitution, and that is expected to come out later in June. We need to pray that ruling like this one comes in our favor. And finally, we need to pray for the church, and we need to be thinking post-Roe now. And I believe, not to brag, but through like our church's ministry of Embrace Grace, who I know that you have interviewed on your show.
Fabulous.
This is that we need to be doing more of that. And the church is the answer. We don't abandon young women in difficult circumstances, but through God's grace, through the love of Christ, we give them tangible help and support so that they know that they're not alone. Abortion needs to be unthinkable, but many people, it's not. It seems like maybe that's the only option they have. And for those who are not thinking correctly, we need to be ready to help them with the love of Christ and supporting them through that time. And that's what I shared with my church. And I think that that's where we're at. Our big thing right now is to be praying.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really important because no decision has been made, even though articles and posts on social media are sounding like the decision is made. It's not made. And we need to continue to pray about this. So.
Absolutely. And amen. A hearty amen. I say to Pastor Mike Demastus, and I am praying and will continue to pray. And I think everyone that's listening in this audience will join together with people from across our state, across the country, to pray that that finally we can start to dismantle this idol of abortion that we've been, again, sacrificing our own children and our own futures to. This is a great, big, gigantic step in the right direction, but that means the fight is far from over. But it will be won through, as the paradox. So many kingdom issues and kingdom elements are paradoxical, and we see Christ as the servant king, for example, and it's not through our own might and our own strength that we will win this, and that we'll be able to right the momentous wrong that we've allowed to exist in our culture. We need to speak up, but it is through leading with love. I truly believe, as you said, Mike, it's not backing down from the harsh reality of the truth of what abortion is, but it is providing the support necessary for women to be pro-life, not just once, but to live in accordance with the flourishing life that God has planned for them, in pro-life, pro-abundant life, and pro-love. And the church is really the only organization equipped to do that. It's by, a combination of supporting the family and God's design for the family, and then operating as a family, as our local churches. That is where this transformation will occur. That's where New Life has always been. And if we aren't telling people and aren't sharing that good news with a smile, then I guess we have a homework assignment. I guess now is the time. And Mike, you said that so well, and it's I think exactly what everybody needs to hear. That I really have nothing left to say. I was just thinking about Revelation 20 and 21. And since we're on the topic of justice and seeing justice done, I pray that will be done here and now in our time, which is so exciting. I think the potential for that is so exciting, but it's far from perfect. It's not over yet, as we've been talking about and repeating. But justice is coming, and God's justice will roll down like a mighty river, and eventually we will see death and Hades swallowed up. We will see judgment. We will see evil punished. We will see the enemy of our souls destroyed and banished forevermore. And he knows this, which is why he's thrashing about wildly, because he's the defeated foe, the defeated dragon who cannot win. And he's just trying to create as much havoc and destruction as he can before he goes down in flames. But there will be a day where there will be no more tears, no more destruction, no more death. And God is actively working towards that. And for him, it's the blink of an eye. And he is making all things new. He is about to wipe away our tears and the suffering for everyone that's been affected personally by abortion. God is going to make these things right. And he promises that. And if he promises that, we can take it to the bank, and it'll be in his timing, of course. But that's something that I think that ought to renew our spirit. It ought to renew our courage on this issue, to know that God's justice will be done. His will be done. And he will take all of the things that men intend for evil, and use it for good, for the saving of many lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And, a lot of weeping and gnashing of teeth will be occurring in the next few days and weeks. But I think that our goal is to just stick our eyes fixed on Christ and fixed on the work that we've been called to do, and not grow weary in doing it.
Right. We don't get distracted. We don't get distracted, but we fix our eyes on things above. Absolutely. And we have every reason to, and maybe this is something that's going to get everybody fired up and encouraged. I know it's definitely captured my attention. It's captured the whole world's attention right now. So now is our moment, and we're prepared to step into it, right? Everybody say it with me. Everybody. We're ready. We're ready. Put me in, coach. Oh, Pastor Mike Demastus, thank you so much. I know even you didn't feel the best, but man, you are out there on fighting day in and day out. And we know this, and everybody, we love you for that, for many reasons. But thank you so much for your dedication, for your courage, and for talking with us even when you didn't feel super well. So
not
God
a problem.
bless you,
I'm
brother.
happy to do that. Hey, you take care.
You too. Pastor Mike Demastus from Fort Des Moines Church of Christ. Check out more about any of Mike's sermons, really are great. And as we mentioned, he changed the billboard on our church building. So obviously, since we were praying for a post-Roe nation, a post-Roe world, then I'm sure that was the tipping point, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back. So thank you for that, Mike. Check out godsfort.org, godsfort.org. And if you need a home church, just check it out. There's directions and everything. So that'd be a real good one. Hint, hint.
Right.
Godsfort.org. Mike Demastus is our special guest, and it's always a joy to talk with him. And if you are enjoying this message, just pass it on to a friend wherever your finer podcasts are found and sold. Check us out on YouTube. We haven't been canceled this week. Facebook, FaithWorks Live on Facebook as well. And until next time, we have a mission. So let's be about it.